Hello, this is 10 a.m. to the point editorial discussion by Neve IAS. In this video, we are going to comprehensively analyze all the editorial articles of the Hindu newspaper of 5th July 2024. Before going to the discussion, let me bring to your attention that Neve IAS is offering a 15-month comprehensive mentorship program. All the details of the mentorship program is included and explained in a video, the link of which is given in the description of this particular video. Also check out the Neve IAS Telegram channel where you can find the handout of this particular discussion and many other content enriching materials including our monthly current affairs magazine. Now let's start the discussion. We have a very enriching Hindu editorial page and the text and context page today. We have an article that explains the Hajj pilgrimage and the recent incident that took place in the Hajj pilgrimage. We have an article explaining the recent controversy in Tata Institute of Social Sciences. We have the notebook session written by a journalist explaining the new changes of the 18th Lok Sabha's first session. Then we have an article on the Myanmar and India's changing stance, the need for changing the stand when it comes to the Myanmar issue. We have three articles for detailed discussion. One is on computer literacy, the other is on the climate change or climate governance, and we have an article on the wild polio virus as well. We also have yet another quick discussion article which is on a recent court decision that took place in the United States. It deals with the idea of presidential impunity. I'll explain all these in detail one by one. Let's move to the first article. Now this is regarding the US presidential immunity. Now you should understand the nature of US courts first, because recently the incident is the US court, the federal court of the United States, gave a judgment that gives immunity to the President of the United States. Now this is a case that came up for hearing in the context of former President Donald Trump, because Donald Trump was accused of overthrowing a democratically elected government in an incident called the Capitol riots. So if you remember, last time when Joe Biden won the elections and Donald Trump lost the elections, there was a huge insurgency that took over everything including the White House. And there was a threat to a democratic transition in the United States. The case is accusing Donald Trump for direct involvement in this conspiracy. And this case is in the court. And in this court, something related to the concept of presidential immunity came up, and the court gave a verdict in favor of a presidential immunity. Now, before going into the concept, you should understand how the Supreme Court or the federal court in the US is formed. In US, the judges are not selected or appointed just like a collegium system in India. The judges instead are nominated by the president, and later this appointment is approved by the Senate. So this is the process of appointing judges in United States. And in this 6-3 verdict, majority of the judges are conservatives. Conservatives means not in the literal sense, it is a party in America, the party of Donald Trump. So most of the judges are conservative. And these judges gave a 6-3 verdict in favor of presidential immunity. Now what is presidential immunity? Presidential immunity means suppose the president gives an order to construct a wall in Mexico, and this decision is being challenged in the court later, and the court is of the view that this is an anti-humanitarian policy, and on that front the decision of the president will be questioned. So as a result, what happens? The decision making capacity of the president will be compromised. Will the president be able to take bold decisions if there is a check on top of the president? So on that regard, the president is given presidential immunity from his decisions. Presidential immunity is given from criminal prosecution for his decisions. And that is categorized into three aspects. One is absolute immunity. That means if a president is taking a decision completely on regard in his official capacity, then the president is given absolute immunity. It cannot be questioned at all. And if president takes a decision on something that is not entirely personal but not something entirely official, then the president have presumptive immunity. Presumptive immunity means suppose the president takes this particular decision and there is an accusation that the president took bribes for this. Now it is assumed that the president is innocent or the president has immunity unless this is proved with facts. Unless the immunity of the president is rebutted with fact, the president is presumed to have an immunity. That's the idea of presidential presumptive immunity. And if a decision is made completely under the ambit of president's personal capacity, then there is no immunity. But on a whole, it gives immunity to the president. That's the idea. And why is this immunity important? As I've explained, it gives the president the leverage to take bold decisions. But you just imagine the opposite circumstance. What if the president gives an order to assassinate somebody? Now again, who is going to check the power of the president in this matter? If there is an immunity for president under the official capacity, the president of the United States is deciding to eliminate an enemy of the country, who is going to check this power? So this raises the question of accountability. So it is a very delicate balance between bold executive and lack of accountability. I hope you understood the idea behind the immunity factor in the American president case and the philosophical or the constitutional question that it raises and the nature of the US federal court. Now let's come to the Myanmar issue. Now, if you understand the Myanmar issue, you should understand the nature of Myanmar's polity. Myanmar was for long under the colonial rule. From here, Myanmar transitioned through the process of decolonization, just like India, but they didn't have a democratic transition. For most of the times, Myanmar was under the power of the military. Even in Pakistan, you can see military was dominating for a lot of time under the leadership of generals like Pervez Musharraf. So just like that, Myanmar was also under the control of military. For a brief time, they had a democratic leadership under people like Aung San Suu Kyi. But again, the military took over. Now the military junta rules Myanmar. The recent situation is, even though the military junta has power over 50% of Myanmar's territory, there is strong resistance to it. And this resistance comes from the ethnically armed organizations and the People's Defense Force. These two outfits control 45% of the territory at present. And in this context, you should understand India's stance, because India had a traditional stance, because Myanmar, I said, was for long under the control of the military. So India's traditional stance was to engage cordially with the military and to enable democratic transition as well. But right now, since the junta takeover, India haven't engaged either with the ethnically armed organizations or the People's Defense Force. But now they control 45% of the territory. Can India afford not to engage with them anymore? That's the question that is being asked in this article. The authors say that India should change. And there are two reasons why India should change. First of all, this is something that directly affects India, because Myanmar shares borders with India and there will be a huge refugee crisis in India. If India doesn't engage with the ethnically armed outfits or the People's Defense Force, this issue cannot be resolved in entirety. Second, if India doesn't engage, China will engage. China already has a very cordial relation with both the junta and the resisting forces. So India shouldn't give away that role to China alone. Now what can be done? Can India depart from its traditional stance or the recent stance all of a sudden? How do we test the waters? The author suggests that India can open a humanitarian channel. Nobody is going to oppose. Either the junta or the other factors not going to oppose if we give humanitarian aid. By giving a humanitarian aid, it can be a place to start with, to know how they respond. So that's the takeaway from this particular article. It gives the current trends about the Myanmar issue. Now let's move to the notebook part written by the journalist on the 18th Lok Sabha's first session. First of all, the journalist says that the security of the new parliament is being taken over by the CISF. CISF is part of the Central Armed Police Force. They took over the control of the parliament security after the December attack on the parliament. Now they are in charge of the parliamentary security. One other interesting stat inside the parliament is 52% of the new MPs are first timers. So this is expected to give more energy and noise in the parliament. We also have a new opposition leader, which was lacking in the last term. It is Rahul Gandhi now. So that is also going to give more teeth to the opposition, says the author. And as a result, when the Prime Minister gave the reply speech to the President's address, There was huge resentment from the opposition. The treasury bench was saying that this is unprecedented, but the others say that this is not unprecedented. In 2004, when Dr. Manmohan Singh was introducing his council of ministers, his sound was not even heard because of the noise of the opposition. So this is not unprecedented. This shows a strong opposition, says the author. And in 2004, the major issue was the Foda scam that unfolded in Bihar, which put Lalu Yadav under very bad light. The author also says that it is a shift from the old parliament to the new parliament. So the old parliament is now called the Samvidhan Sadan, the place where the constitution was enacted. So that is where the Constituent Assembly, under the presidentship of G.V. Mavlankar and under the chairmanship of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar of the drafting committee, was constituted. There was a recent controversy with regard to the shifting of statues of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Mahatma Gandhi from the entrance of the parliament gate, and now they are shifted into a new landscape called the Prerana Sthal. The author also brings into attention two practices that are diminishing in recent times. One is the practice of ministers briefing it to the journalist about decisions that doesn't have a conclusive outcome in parliamentary debates. Ministers used to explain the stand of the government to the journalist in a separate briefing, which is fading now, says the author. There is also an absence of annual passes to the journalist. Earlier there was a scheme of annual passes, but after COVID, even if someone possesses an annual pass, there needs to be a special pass. So this is something the author brings to your attention from the personal note. These are things that you can be familiar with regard to the parliament. Let's move to the third article. This is from the explained part. This is with regarding to tests. So there was a recent controversy in tests. That is why the organization was in news. On a fine day, 100 of its staff received a termination notice. And this created huge uproar. And after 2 days, this notice was withdrawn. And there continued to be employees in the test. This was a major controversy again about the institution. The reason for this was with regarding to the funding of TIFF. You should know that majority of the TIFF funding is by UGC, University Grant Commission, and the rest of the funding, which includes the salary of these professionals, comes from the Tata Education Trust. Now, this termination was with respect to the renewal of contracts under the TET. And they decided that they will continue as employees under the Tata Education Trust, and this controversy was settled. But the article throws light on much bigger issues like that of leadership in TIS. So it says that from 2004 to 2018, they had a very strong leadership. They just had one person as the chairman, the vice chancellor to be precise, and that person was S. Parashuraman. It is under his leadership that they expanded from being an institute that offers 15 programs to one that offers 55 programs, including foreign collaborations. So now they are a premier social science institute in the country. And since the change of this leadership, they have tried various things like the formation of executive council, the takeover of the institute by the central government, and this has resulted in a lot of unpopular decisions like the cancellation of aid to financially deprived students in all their 4 campuses. So these things are called into question. Is something that explains the recent controversy, not something that is deeply interesting for a UPSC aspirants from the long-term perspective. So that's it from this article. Let's move to the next article in the explained part, which is on Hajj pilgrimage. So there was a recent incident during the Hajj pilgrimage where 1,300 people died. Before going into the recent incident, let me explain you what Hajj is. Hajj is an annual religious pilgrimage taken by the Muslim community to Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, there are 2 holy places, holiest of the holy places for the Muslims. One is Mecca and the second is Medina. It is in Mecca, you have the Haram, the square building, which is considered as the center of the world. The Muslim prayer, namaz, is offered facing the west direction from India, which is in the direction of the Haram. And it is a long procedure. The Hajj procedure doesn't just include a pilgrimage to Mecca or Medina. It includes taking visits in places like Arafat, the place where Prophet Muhammad offered his last sermon. And it is in Arafat, majority of the people died this year. People died because of heat and because of the geographical factors. And to understand why people died, you should understand about Hajj quota. So as I said, both these locations are located in Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia cannot afford everyone who is coming to visit the Hajj pilgrimage, because Hajj is a mandatory practice under the Islamic law. Everybody have to visit or undertake this pilgrimage once in their lifetime if they doesn't have any permanent physical disability, including the Prophet. Everybody has taken this pilgrimage. Prophet took it in 632 AD. So there will be a huge influx of people to Mecca and Medina during this time, and they follow the lunar calendar, which is 11 days preceding the Gregorian calendar. This year the Hajj pilgrimage fall in June, and it is during that time these casualties took place. And for this, the Saudi government offers a quota for all major Muslim countries. They offer a quota. In that quota they will offer the visas, and people who come in this visas get official treatment like air conditioned travel, water bottle, everything. And this year they offered a quota of 1.8 million, which is 18 lakh. But the actual number of people who visited Saudi Arabia for the Hajj pilgrimage was exceeding 2 million. What happens as a result is that these people are not allowed, this excess 2 lakh people are not allowed into the pilgrimage site. So they take unauthorized routes. As a result, they will be falling due to the geographical factors. As per the Saudi Arabia statistics, out of the total 1,300 people who were killed, 83% people were through these unauthorized routes. This includes Indians as well, people who go there as blue collar workers. This includes people who come in visiting visas from neighboring countries like Egypt, Iraq and Jordan. So I hope you got a clear idea about the Hajj pilgrimage and the recent issue with regarding to that. Now let's move to the detailed discussion articles. The first article is with respect to wild type polio virus type 1. First of all, to understand this editorial, you have to understand about polio virus. There are 3 types of polio virus: type 1, type 2, type 3. You must have heard that we have eradicated polio in our country. So this is one of the major achievements of India when it comes to public health. And what we eradicated is type 2 and type 3. Type 1 is the only thing that is remaining, and this is endemic to Pakistan and Afghanistan. The international community has a target of eliminating them by 2026, but this target has taken a hit right now, because 6 cases each has been reported from both Afghanistan and Pakistan. And in cities that are considered as historical reservoirs like Quetta, Karachi and Kandahar, we have found environmental samples as well. Now, to understand environmental samples, you should understand how poliovirus get transmitted. They get transmitted only through 2 routes. One is the oral route through respiratory tracts, other is through the feces of humans. So human beings are the only reservoirs of the poliovirus. But we can find environmental samples like in soil, like in water. So these environmental samples were found from these historical reservoirs. That is a major concern. And with respect to Pakistan and Afghanistan, these are countries that are facing political and economic crisis. Afghanistan is being ruled by Taliban, and Pakistan is having an economic crisis, and they are also facing threat by Taliban in Pakistan. So they have recently sent back a lot of refugees from Afghanistan back to Pakistan. Because of this reason, we fear there is a probability of an international spread of this disease because of intermixing of people and large-scale migration. There is also a threat of lack of vaccination. So even when 90% people take the vaccination, there will be 10% who doesn't. And this 10% involves in activities like fake finger marks, because finger mark is through which the government authorities will recognize people who have vaccinated. So people will give fake finger marks and will fake the vaccinations. As a result, what happens is the government will not be able to track it and the disease will spread. So that's the idea about the wild type polio virus. I hope it gives you insights about prelims, for prelims and as well as mains. Now let's move to the second article of detailed discussion, which is on computer literacy. Now, this article is important for you from the perspective of GS2, which is governance. The article itself defines computer literacy. Computer literacy is the knowledge and the ability to use computers and technology efficiently. It's a very basic definition: knowledge and ability to use technology efficiently. Just 3 keywords. This article is pitched around a recent survey by the National Sample Survey Organization, the 78th round of the survey, which is multiple indicator survey. And this survey is also an indication about the issues with regarding to the issue of digital divide in India. Just take the statistics in this survey. If we take computer literacy as the basic ability to deal with a computer, just 24.7% individuals have the ability to do that in India, which is not even a quarter. If you take the rural-urban disparity, in rural areas it is 18% and in urban areas it is 39%. In both cases it is not above 50%, but in rural areas it is just 18%. See the disparity. There is also an issue of cohort effect. Cohort effect means we can classify age groups into various cohorts. For example, 15 to 39 in one cohort, 65 plus in the other cohort. And in this case, people in the upper age cohort, like 65 plus, they don't have a edge when it comes to computer using abilities, or their statistics are better, not better. In social science, we call it cohort effect, age specific disparity. So we have rural urban disparity, we have age specific disparity, then we have interstate disparity. Take Kerala, it has 72% computer literacy. Take Assam, it has only 17%. Nowhere near the median or the mode. So these disparities throws light into issues of India's digital divide as well. Now let's come into the reasons for it. First is lack of infrastructure and personnel at the school levels. Because school is where a student will get familiar with these things in the first place. Even if it is lacking in house, school is where one should get familiar with. But these are lacking. Second, lack of motivation due to accessibility issue. This is mainly true when it comes to the 65 plus category. Because if you have a smartphone only, you will have the ability to use it. If you don't have it, you can learn it theoretically, but you can't use it. And people will lack the motivation to learn it as well. This happens with the upper age limit. And if you take an important statistic from the OECD, this is very important. People with computer skills, their employability stands at 72%. People without computer skills, their employability stands at 52%. There is a disparity of almost 22%. And how do we counter this? We counter this by equipping our schools, because as I said, we go back to the reasons. Equip the schools and do targeted programs. This is for the age cohort, 65 plus. Bring in the LSGs, the civil societies, and give targeted programs. So that's the takeaway from this particular article. Let's move to the final article of today's discussion. This is with regard to climate governance, important for you from the perspective of governance as well as environment. It marks India's achievements under three different heads, and it gives a way ahead under a motto. Now, when we are talking about India's achievements, we have three major areas. One is when it comes to the global initiatives, we have been in the forefront of the formation of International Solar Alliance, Coalition for Disaster Resilience Initiative, Global Biofuels Alliance, and the Green Development Pact under the G20. So we have made significant leaps when it comes to global initiatives or giving global leadership in climate governance. We have also taken bolder and ambitious targets like the net zero target by 2070. We also have the Panchamrit declarations. The net zero target is one among the Panchamrit declaration. We have our nationally determined contributions, which is much more broader. We also have our national action plan on climate change. Our domestic initiatives are also very strong because we have launched initiatives like carbon trading scheme. We have other initiatives like the FAME as well, faster adoption to manufacturing vehicles, electronic vehicles. So how do we go ahead now? The author gives a threefold motto: go higher, go wider, go deeper. Go higher means go higher in the international fora. So we may get a chance to host the United Nations Conference of Parties. So increase the leadership that is given in the international level, that is go higher. Go wider means include more sectors. Now our focus is more on power sector only. Include more sectors like the cryptocurrency, the digital market, because when we use cryptocurrency, there is a lot of power consumption which will affect the carbon emissions as well. So this is something that has implications in all sectors. So include all sectors, go wider. Then go deeper, because we are a federal state. Things like electricity, forest, or land, everything comes under the state list. Or without the involvement of the state, it is difficult to ensure climate governance in the country. To a subnational level, there should be more focus. So this is a motto that the author gives. You can take it if you wish. That's the takeaway from this day's Hindu editorial. It was a very enriching one. I believe you have enough takeaways from it. Don't forget to check out our Telegram channel for the handout of this particular discussion. Also check the description for the NEEV IAS 15-month mentorship program. Thank you for listening.